الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. Alhamdulillah, continuing on in Umdatul Ahkam, the hadith number 11, still in the chapter of Tahara, the chapter of purification. This hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن أمتي يدعون يوم القيامة غرا محجلين من آثار الوضوء. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that for sure my ummah, my people, my followers, they will be called out on the day of Qiyamah, غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ, as غُرًّا with bright faces, and مُحَجَّلِينَ with bright limbs. مِنْ آثَارِ الْوُضُوء, from the effects or from the results of making wudu. And then Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said, following this, فَمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يُطِيلَ غُرَّتَهُ فَلْيَفْعَلْ. That whoever of you is able to extend their ghurra, their brightness, then they should do so. In another narration, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he mentioned the same hadith, and he said, فَمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يُطِيلَ غُرَّتَهُ وَتَحْجِيلَهُ فَلْيَفْعَلْ. Whoever is able to extend the brightness of the face and the brightness of the limbs, let them do so. And in another narration by Imam Muslim, that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said, سمعت خليلي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول تبلغ الحلية من المؤمن حيث يبلغ الوضوء. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the adornments, the jewelry, right, the beautification that the believer will wear in Jannah will reach up to the point that they used to make wudu. Will reach up to the point that they used to make wudu. And these are narrations that are all related, and this isn't about anything that has to do with the necessarily the ahkam of wudu. You might think, when is describing the effects of wudu. But there is some mention of hukm here that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that he modeled, which is a preference or an option that he mentioned. We know that when you make wudu, you have to wash your face, you wash your arms up to and including the elbows, your feet up to and including the ankles, you wipe your head, and so on and so forth. But in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, my ummah will be called out on the day of resurrection. غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ. Ghurran is a reference to, you see the horses that have like the white stripe on their faces? And then that's ghurran, that's called ghur. And then muhajjalin is the reference to the horses that have the white on their legs. So it's a beautiful horse, right? It's all brown or all black, except it has a white stripe on the head, and it has the white on their legs. So it makes it look like a more expensive, really beautiful horse. And so this is the description of how the believers will be called. The scholars of hadith, they mentioned that the interpretation of this hadith, number one, that they will be called out with this characteristic, Ya ghurran muhajjalin, right? That, oh, you who are of bright faces and bright limbs. And then they also mentioned the other interpretation that they will be called out, and when they're called to come, they will have bright faces and bright limbs, because of the wording of the hadith, from the athar of the wudu, from the effects of wudu. And then what did Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu do as a result of this? He used to extended the portion of washing. He extended the portion of washing. There's another narration in Muslim that the same narrator from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he mentions, رأيت أبا هريرة يتوضأ فغسل وجهه ويديه حتى كاد يبلغ المنكبين. That I saw Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu making wudu. He washed his face and he washed his arms until he almost reached his shoulders. Until he almost reached his shoulders. This is in Sahih Muslim. So he's washing, you only have to wash up to the elbow, but he's making his arm go up higher, almost all the way to his shoulders. ثم غسل رجليه حتى رفع إلى الساقين. Then he washed his feet until he was almost to the point of his calf, right to the point of his calf. And then he mentioned, Abu Hurairah mentioned the same hadith. And so this practice of, you see the hifz, the eagerness of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu majmain, and their understanding, right? They know they only have to wash up to here. But when he's combining all these narrations that the Prophet ﷺ said that the believers will wear their adornments, right? And the hulya is like a bracelet, asawira min fidda, of they'll have bracelets of gold, bracelets of silver, bracelets made of pearls. That these are the descriptions of the people of Jannah. They'll be wearing bracelets of these. And so when the Prophet ﷺ is saying that to the point that a person made wudu, they will be wearing their bracelets, what did Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu do? He's extending. Right? He's extending. This is not mandatory. We know that's only mandatory to wash up to where Allah said to wash up to. But this shows you the understanding of the Sahaba, right? Their love to want to do more than what's necessary. Right? None of this is necessary. Washing up to your shoulders, not at all necessary. None of the fuqaha said is necessary. This is a practice that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu did. But Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu is one of the foremost students of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's a mukthirin min al-hadith, one of the ones that has the absolute highest number of hadith, one of the highest narrators from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not someone who is doing things without knowledge, without ilm, without understanding. And so there is this eagerness, right? And this action that you can emulate from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu every time you make wudu, if you're conscious, right? This is a wudu that is conscious. I know I have to wash up to here, but man, I want those bracelets to go higher, right? I want my adornment in Jannah to be higher. And so when you're intentionally doing this, this gives you a flavor, right, of practicing the wudu. And the wudu is not just a routine, right? It becomes something more special because you know that on the Day of Judgment, these will be shining bright, right? These will be shining bright. So when you wake up for Fajr or you get up, your eyes open, and it's really hard to get up, and you're looking at the clock, and you're like, I have half an hour more. I'll try to get up, in about 15 minutes. I'll make wudu in 30 seconds, and then I'll be able to pray. And then your whole time goes by, right? So not just the salah that you missed, but you missed another opportunity to permanently mark yourself to be called out on the day of resurrection. You will be attracted to or called to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they'll be called yud'una. They'll be called out. My ummah will be called out, right? And so you will come forth. And subhanallah, what a beautiful thing, right? And so Allah Azza wa Jalla, when He gives us this wudu, it's not just for the reason of being physically pure, but it's also a mark of honor for the believer. That the believer is doing something to obey Allah, to obey His Messenger, and to perform the acts as Allah Azza wa Jalla has wanted him to perform. And then again, hoping for the reward. Hoping for that reward from Allah Azza wa Jalla, that my limbs will be shining bright as well. Right? And again, your wudu is perfectly fine if you go up to your elbow and you include it. But this just goes to show you the eagerness and wanting the blessings of the akhirah, right? That he would intentionally do this to try to remind himself, this is something special, and I want my entire limbs to grow. One thing we'll mention is some of the scholars they mention in the hadith that when you're washing your face, how do you extend the washing of the face, right? Because you can do it on your arms, it's easy. And on your legs, it's easy. And even when Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the one that's mentioned where they saw him do the wudu, they didn't mention that he elongated on his face. So they said he's encouraging you to elongate the wudu where it makes sense, right? Which is your arms and your legs. But even when his own practice, there wasn't a demonstration of how he extended the face, right? And so you don't want to necessarily just start doing, up your chest and all this kind. Don't go into extremes with this. But you have modeled for you in the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a beautiful example. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to join us all together when He's calling us out, when He's calling the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam out, and that we see each other, inshallah, with our limbs shining bright. And this is again the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Sima." This is a hadith. I have it here. Subhanallah. Sima laysat li ghayrikum. Sima laysat li ghayrikum. Kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this is a mark that is only given to my ummah. So even the other nations of the prophets, even though they had wudu, they had purification, they will not have this mark. This is a mark specifically for the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the wudu is truly a mark of honor. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us to appreciate that and to accept. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.